All right, so hello everyone. My name is Caroline Hoffman and I'm a graduate student here at the University of Texas at Austin, studying bilingual bicultural education and working as a graduate assistant in the UT Center for Community Engagement. We would like to welcome everyone to the third event of our new series, Conversations from the Front Porch. The Center for Community Engagement at the University of Texas at Austin seeks to connect the resources of the university, including our students, our staff, and our faculty, with the priorities of our community, be they local, state, national, or international. In doing so, for the last 10 years, our programming has sought to amplify voices of community stakeholders, including residents, community leaders, and nonprofit heads. Through our Front Porch Gathering series, now in its 6th year, the Center for Community Engagement creates meaningful connections among residents, community leaders, and other stakeholders in Austin through town hall style conversations. These conversations gather stakeholders to bring their lived experiences to bear on common priorities in the community and to inspire collaborative action toward building a more equitable community. Conversations from the Front Porch is our new series designed to host intimate, timely, and candid conversations about the current state of engagement and best practices in community engagement. This is our third conversation in the series for this academic year. In our other events, we talked with our partners about grant making during the time of COVID and about models for community development. Today's conversation is about collaboration and community-based research, with a look into a model university community partnership focused on mental wellness. Today's conversation will include Dr. Suchitra Gururaj. She's the Assistant Vice President for the Center for Community Engagement and an instructor in the Plan 2 Honors Program at the University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Virginia A. Brown. She is the Assistant Professor in the Department of Population Health, Community Engagement, and Health Equity, as well as in the Department of Psychiatry. She's also the Director of the Liberal Arts Honors at the University.
Associate Director.
Oh, there we go. Associate Director, excuse me. And Ms. Deliana Garcia, and she is the Director of International Projects and Emerging Issues at the Migrant Clinicians Network, and she has dedicated more than 25 years to the health and wellness needs of migrant and other underserved populations. So welcome to the conversation. With that, I'll ask Dr. Gururaj to kick off the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Caroline. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of our graduate students. We could not do the work that we do at our center without our grad students. So congrats, Caroline, on your first year finishing up at UT. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Ms. Garcia, for being here and being a part of this conversation. We talked a little bit about the previous conversations in this new series. I will say that this new series was developed in part because of the moment that we're living in. We are in a pandemic. We are reckoning with systemic inequities. In Central Texas, we are still recovering from a snowstorm that hit us in February. So it's been a year. And so I wanted to thank you and give you my gratitude for sharing this time with us, because I know it's been a difficult year and we are zoomed out. So I appreciate your being part of another Zoom conversation today. Caroline mentioned that this is a new series developed in the time of Zoom because we wanted to have these intimate conversations. I think that we just talked about them as when you're at a large community gathering and you find like those two people that you really, really want to connect with and you hang out in the corner with the punch. And you talk about like, how are we going to do this? And I've had both of those, I've had those conversations with both of you actually in the past. And so we have talked about grants, and that grants conversation was really for our nonprofit partners. The community development conversation was in part for our community partners, but also for our students who want to engage in the community. I see this conversation about community engaged research and best practices in community engaged research as being perhaps for our faculty, but I'll let you guys make that distinction. At our community gatherings, our Front Porch gatherings, we urge our participants to leave their title at the door because what we're really bringing is lived experience. in this moment, Caroline and I made an agreement that we are a cadre of 4 women in community engagement. And it's very important to me that women who often carry a lot of the work in community engagement, both in the community and certainly in the academy, be given all the respect. And so if it's okay with you, today you are Dr. Brown and Ms. Garcia for us.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's awesome. So I'm going to kick this off just by having you guys, you've heard enough from us, having you guys introduce yourselves, certainly your primary associated organization, but maybe a singular priority of your work. And Ms. Garcia, we'll start with you.
So I was introduced. Thank you, Caroline. I've been with the Migrant Clinicians Network now several decades, we'll put it that way. And the work that we've been engaged in is to really try and understand the impact of migration on health. But when we talk about migration, it's human movement of all varieties. So some of it's forced, some of it is anticipated, some of it is not even really considered as movement. I mean, how many of us left where we grew up to go to school? That in and of itself is human movement and brings with it a rupture of those social connections that we had and the need to learn new systems and make new connections. And what's required to be able to do that is really quite complicated. It helps if you have the language. It helps if you have time. It helps if you're not concerned about survival. It helps if you have housing, all of those things that reduce the number of items that conflict with your being able to concentrate on how you set up that new social network so that you can engage in pursuit of your own well-being, and some of that being accessing healthcare. So migration has always been a huge issue. And truly, I'm a migrant to Austin. I mean, I've lived here, again, multiple decades, but I came from elsewhere. I came from El Paso, Texas, which is a border community. And it had with it a really different reality about how fluid human migration was and the acceptance of that. And then I came here to Austin as a student, and I realized that this community was and continues to be very divided racially and ethnically and economically. And that as I spent years and years here, really trying to participate as a member in this community, it was to try and use whatever advantage I had to seek connections for other people and to really say, you know, the community is bigger than your little campus view. And, you know, some of what you need to understand is what is going on elsewhere and the effect that your presence here can have on that. You know, I lived for many years in East Austin in the earlier years of my tenure here and couldn't get a pizza delivered to East Austin, you know, and I would joke and say, I'll meet you under I-35 and pay you, and you can drive off. And, you know, and I think that the impact, the effect of not even being able to get food delivered to an area of town where you are living really brings into sharp relief what people are struggling with on a regular basis, because that was just a pizza. And what I saw then over, you know, the years was a breakdown for access to some of the very simple things. And I watched UT grow up. I'm an alumni, is that how you say it? At any rate.
Alum, I guess we say
I'm an alum, let's leave it there.
Right.
And both as an undergraduate and a graduate. And, you know, I have had a very difficult relationship periodically, because it is the 800-pound gorilla that has so many resources that could do so much, and for so long did not, in my perspective. And yet with time, I've really seen some wonderful efforts. The Humanities Institute was how I came to UT again, because I was given a sabbatical through the Humanities Institute, where I could look at some of the programming that we were doing and try and develop a business case for it and take advantage of, you know, access to faculty and resources. And then through those connections and periods where I was then present on campus, was fortunate enough to meet someone like Virginia, Dr. Brown, because then her understanding truly of what engaging the community meant was light years beyond what I had experienced previously. And that's enough to make you go, okay, I'm back. I'm back and I'm in, count on me. And it is that I think is so important. And so that's been a big part of the motivation for my work in recent years.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for setting up Dr. Brown. Actually, you just took us right to the introduction there. Dr. Brown, would you like to introduce yourself, your all of your many affiliations, and where you're located?
Thank you. I want to pick up on a thread of what Ms. Garcia was saying about this idea of movement, that we are migrants in many different kinds of ways, and movement looks like many things. I'm the daughter of an Air Force pilot. I was born in Texas. I was born north of Dallas in a town called Sherman that used to have an Air Force base. So I'm from here. And I am, okay? My passport says, born Sherman, Texas. I returned from being a citizen of the United States, having spent my formative years up through like 9th grade in California, went to Maryland and then Washington, D.C. I came here to do a particular job, to come to UT at Dell Med, to do a particular kind of work. And I had forgotten. I'm from Howard University. I am a daughter of Howard University. I hold a couple degrees from there. And I come from Washington, D.C., a still majority Black city. I came to Austin and I had forgotten what it means to live in a hyper-segregated community. What it means that my presence in these spaces of community as a Black woman, I did not realize that my UT-ness came way before I ever entered the room. And while I was still in the room, UT was sitting right there with me. And I couldn't understand. I was like, what is going on here? And in the language of research, I said to someone one day when I realized that, I said, oh, being Black and, from an HBCU is not a protective factor. And the gentleman laughed. And I said, this is what has been so difficult in us getting a conversation, really going and getting and engaging. So this idea of engagement for me really looks at three things. The work that I do is grounded in the fact that my practical work has been as a clinical ethicist, someone who stood at the bedside of patients where there were tough medical dilemmas, ethical dilemmas going on about how to treat. And I do remember, being in situations where the undercurrent was really, a Black family, myself, my white colleague, talking about issues of end of life and shifting goals of care away from treatment to comfort and care, because there was no restorative treatment. And how that sounds to many people, and especially Black and brown folks in this country, is you don't care about grandma and you don't care about me. And so the need to have to lean into the truth of that, to lean in, to say, yes, there was a time that was true. I hope my organization has changed. These are the things that we've done to make this a transparent process. That's why we are talking to you openly about what medically are the goals of care, and we would like you to listen to our palliative team. It is ultimately your decision, but let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, okay? Yeah, there was a time people did slow codes, okay? Yeah, that patient down there in room less than so, just kind of, if they code, walk down there slowly, or, all the things that we know in our families, that we have read. There was a time that's true, that still stays with us. And it shapes the center of my work. And what I have learned in coming to the role that I'm in the medical school in the Department of Population Health, is that the ethical issues and the community engaged issues need to have a conversation with each other. And that's what collaborative research really is. As an ethicist, as someone who thinks about, the protection of the individual, making sure that we're doing a good, and ensuring that the scarce resources that are there are distributed equitably, okay, with some concept of fairness. It's not my version of fairness. It's not the Tower or the HLB's, the health learning buildings idea of what fairness is. It is our collective creation and statement of what is equitable, and working to pound that out. So that's what I bring, that kind of passion and excitement. I center my work around the issues of protecting autonomy for people who are living with serious mental illness, using a document called a Psychiatric Advance Directive. And I won't spend a lot of time today, but it is what we would call a crisis plan with teeth. A Psychiatric Advance Directive is a legal document. It doesn't require a lawyer to fill out. It's just really you and your clinician talking about what's important if you lose capacity during a mental health crisis. What medication works best for you? If seclusion or restraints is something that is necessary, what works best for you? And if you are a person where electroconvulsive therapy is a type of treatment that is beneficial, we need to know that and have it written down and know who to contact. It is a legal document that requires clinicians to take a look, to understand, and to the best of their medical ability, respond to what's on there and engage appropriately. So it's this broader notion of the protection of the individual now becomes a discussion about what does it mean when we turn to a community. A community is made up of a bunch of individuals. We're a bunch of individuals right here, but now we're in community together. We're representing or thinking about a broader issue. And there's a different set of obligations that we as researchers owe communities. Communities have great strength. Communities have great knowledge. And typically the mistake that has been made is the town and gown, that ivory tower academic thing. We swoop in, yeah, we read a lot of books. We read a lot of articles. We may have even written some books, okay? We think we know everything, but we don't. And we don't practice this fancy word of humility. We don't, like Quincy Jones said when he did that epic song, We Are the World. He said, check your ego at the door, okay? We have to learn how to walk into the room and check our ego, our knowledge. We have studied very hard to be here. It is an identity that informs who we are, but we need to learn to set that aside to hear more, to be in community, to be in conversation, and to learn from others, okay? You can be, book smart, but not know how to punch your way out of a paper bag, okay? So we have to come to this as researchers with that kind of humility, and to ask community to be willing to engage with us, not for us to empower them and to break off a little bit of the power that we might have and share it with others, but to actually decide amongst ourselves. And we'll talk about the project that Ms. Garcia and I'm going to get you a honorary degree there. But we'll talk about in a moment a project that we work on together, but that we have to distribute what we know and what we do around the table. Each of us has strengths. Each of us has gaps. Some of us are better at other things than some. When I was rearing my children, I have two sons, a daughter and a daughter-in-law. When my kids were little, I said to their cousin, go set the table. And, he's a boy. And he was like, that's girls' work. And I'm like, that's the most sexist thing I've ever heard. What do you mean? Go set that table. Nicole, take the trash out. So, and so I never thought that work was gendered. It's like, who's the best person for it? Who's got the best knowledge? who's got the skills. And if you both don't like it, it's rock, paper, scissors about who's going to do the task. And I think that's how you think about engaged work is I have a certain knowledge, my collaborators and community members have a certain knowledge. How can we join forces and be better? Okay, be better going forward. So that's really sort of, if you will, my philosophy and an introduction about how do I think, and just really delighted to be here in partnership and in community with everyone today to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown and Ms. Garcia, for sort of setting the scene. And from your philosophy, I was just writing wildly as you were talking, and I got so many best practices around this work, right? Context setting, knowing your context. You both talked about the economic segregation in Austin, and sort of your Ms. Garcia as also a West Texan from Lubbock, Texas. I see that Texas is a big state. There are many different sort of cultural ecosystems in the state. And so to know that context is really important. You both talked about communications and the way of speaking to each other. You talked about capacity building or helping to build capacity, but most of all, you talked about collaboration. And so before, I know that I'm going to pass to Caroline in a minute to talk specifically about the project that you are working on with patient-centered research initiatives outcomes. But my question is really about that piece of collaboration. And to give full disclosure, I'm a co-PI on this project with Dr. Brown, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Dr. Brown recruited me to this project as a member of the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement. And so I know that you have done the work to build a collaborative of on-campus partners and a collaborative of off-campus partners. And so as a favor to any faculty who may be watching this, could you talk a little bit, just very briefly about your approach to seeking collaboration as a critical piece of any project that you do?
Sure. That's an important question, and thinking about it, it's the same answer that when I talk with community organizations about collaboration. It's a relationship that you've had for a while. You may not have done any business together, but you've known each other. So Dr. Gururaj, we've known each other 5 years. You were one of the first people I met. July of 2016. Okay, I met you shortly thereafter. And we sort of hit it off. You were in DDC. There was a lot of commonality between what I was doing and what you were doing. And we've just sort of stayed in touch. And then I came back from a conference. I had been out in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I know what the answer is. And I kept talking to you. I said, well, we're going to do business one day. I don't know when. Ms. Garcia and I, a mutual colleague, introduced us. Ricardo introduced us. And we said, y'all need to know each other. You share a lot of things in common. You have a similar vision. You should know each other. And we're like, okay. And we didn't have any business in mind, but we knew we shared a particular passion about the work. We figured where the intersections of what we did. And we just sort of said one day. And it's born out of a more authentic component. So advice to faculty who are thinking about this: you truly can't wake up today and see a request for a proposal and say, I've got to go find some collaborators. You have to be in community with a set of collaborators way before that. You may not be doing any work. Maybe you're writing an article. That's the one place where people who have a similar mind can always come together, and papers are currency in our business. Getting published is a kind of currency. So you can come together and get to know each other and know how you work and how you partition work and how you do research You can do a paper together, but just go have coffee. Okay, get to know each other. Get to know each other as people. I mean, that's how we met. We'd have those meetings every now and then. We'd have coffee or lunch and just kind of get to know each other. We even did the what was that holiday walk one time, remember? But
That's right.
right? Okay. It just,
Wow.
really.
Back when we could be in person.
Right.
Amazing.
I can't even remember what it's called.
No.
But the idea of authentic partnerships is true, whether it's authentic partnerships in your academic world, your business world, or authentic partnerships with community. And that means you have to have a sense of what each other are, where your gaps in knowledge are, what you don't know, what you want to know, and a kind of friendship. I think that when this is your lifelong work, there is a kind of friendship that grows more deeply and becomes more rich. And I think that's critically important. And you apply those same things to engaging with community. When we started this project, this is a PCORI award. So what I was awarded, and I was the first person at Dell Medical. There are other colleagues who have been awarded funding from PCORI, but not at Dell Med. So this was Dell Med's first patient-centered outcome research institute. That's who PCORI is. Eugene Washington PCOR Engagement Award. A lot of words for a project that values community engagement. And community engagement is about, for this Eugene Washington Award, is about pulling together a range of stakeholders. In this case, we looked at mental health as being a key area. The Austin Public Health had done its community health assessment, community health improvement analysis, and one of the 4 areas revealed that mental health and well-being was a key issue that Austinites wanted to be improved. So I grabbed onto that as being the motive for why would I do a PCOR engagement award, and on what topic and why? Okay, what did community think about it? Community had spoken. They said mental health is critically important. When I looked at this CHIP, the Community Health Improvement Program, in academic language, we say, wow, that's a massive unfunded mandate. How on earth do you bring all these community members together and you have no money? You can't thank partners for their time and their talent and the engagement that they give you. That's very difficult. So this award, which recognizes pulling together community stakeholders and to compensate them appropriately for their time and involvement, really rang true as being something critically important. And there was no other logical partner than DDCE. Dell Med is too new to say that we have any real deep ties to community. Yes, we came here. We're in fact, funded by tax dollars to improve health, but we don't have the deep ties that DDCE did. So you were always a natural partner. And asking Dr. Octavio Martinez, with his leadership from Hogg Foundation and his role as a psychiatrist for mental health, were just 2 natural components to bring to this, to say, I don't know those things. That's another component. You guys will know, I'm very clear. It's like, no, not my comfort zone. I'm not familiar with that. I need to go get some folks who really understand this better. And I don't think there was a better partner than DDCE to be part of this. And I met Ms. Garcia at another function at the Kofi, is I think where we first met each other, and just sort of learned about your work and deeply understood what you were working on, and where our passions were very similar. And I thought this could be a good program, because you were doing health broadly, you were doing some research and funding things and making huge differences. What a marvelous partner. And so we pulled together a range of stakeholders and had a really deliberate process. Our key thing was, when we build out our collaborative council for mental health, we can't do it the same way. We can't have the same old, like who's your friend, who you working with. We had to think more broadly and more deliberately. And we created a method that we applied to how do we identify. It included students, okay, student voice in this, which was really a sweet spot and a game changer for what we were doing. So we have a range of partners that are part of our collaborative council. We will be expanding that council in early 2022. We want to be sustainable beyond the award. And that's a real measure of collaborative work. One of the greatest criticisms of academic and other driven projects is that we come in, we do this thing, and we disappear. We don't even have the courtesy sometimes to bring back what we've learned and share that. And that is an earned criticism. And that's something that we're deeply aware of, that we do not and will not do that. We believe that one of the features of good practice, because that was an earlier question, good practice around engaged scholarship is, did our being here leave people better off? Is there a net add? Is there a value that has been earned? And that value might even just be, hey, we had to order 5 laptops for this. Did we give them to one of our partners? Did we give the beakers and the test tubes to the chemistry program at the neighborhood school? There's so much that we can leave that, you know, we're not going to use, or we'll order again when we get funded for something else. That we need to really think about what sustainability looks like. How do people continue to do this in the way that they think is appropriate, right? How do we set up our projects to be sustainable? And that's a really key part of the work that we've put into this project. We call our project, it's Engaging Community by Engaging Researchers, PCOR and Action. And PCOR is Patient-Centered Outcomes Research. What does that mean? It means a couple of things, that we are engaged not only with people with lived experience, where we look at mental health, folks with lived experience, we look at advocacy organizations like Central Texas NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. We have collaborators from Integral Care, from Austin Public Health, and a number of other organizations that are intimately engaged with supporting issues around mental health, whether that be our colleagues from Houston-Tillotson, issues in postpartum depression. We think very broadly about this issue and how we engage and how we think about changing the perception of how research is done, not as participants, not as research participants, but as co-creators of knowledge. Community engaged scholarship asks, or what we call CBPR, community-based participatory research, asks not what is it that I as a researcher want to research, but what does the community think is important? We might think that exercise and a walking program is really key, but if you talk to a community might tell you, it's speed bumps. We can't even cross the street without getting run over to get to the park, or there is no park, or whatever. That we may think we know, but we are not the owners of that community knowledge. And that's really the central concept of the co-creation of this knowledge, not as participants, but as co-creators, from the idea to the recruitment of participants, to the evaluation of information, the dissemination of what you've learned, and the continuation of the project in whatever logical way communities think are the next steps after we leave. That's the difference.
That's incredible. Thank you, Dr. Brown. A few things. First of all, I don't want to neglect to welcome Ms. Stephanie Lang, our Director for Equity and Community Advocacy. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here. What you said about compensating our community partners, and I know that the grant plan is eventually down the line to build out a really robust community institutional review board for this kind of
Yeah.
research. So I appreciate that direction. With that, I want to pass it to Caroline, because what I'm hearing is all the right things that we as university folks or on the university research side can do. But what is the perception on the community side? Carolyn, do you want to take that?
Yes, so my next question is for Ms. Garcia, and I would like to ask you as a collaborator what this project means to community partners. So did you see this as an opportunity to amplify community voice, and how did you want community voice to be included in this project?
You know, how I wanted community voice to be included, I'm not sure I was particularly clear, but what was presented was absolutely a positive from my perspective, because I think, you know, Dr. Brown was talking about it being in conversation and having the community understand. And I'm probably, you know, I mean, I'm an old lefty. And I think coming in my education and in my perspective from work in, you know, from the sort of the pedagogy of the oppressed, and really trying to say, if you don't give people what they need, whatever it is that you're trying to show them goes nowhere, because it falls on an unprepared ground, because there's too much obstructing their ability to participate. To hear from Dr. Brown in this, this needs to be a collaboration. This is going to be community coming together. And what we think is really probably the case is that while many community members may have been asked, they come to this from very different levels of experience and preparedness. And so we're going to level that ground first and foremost. We're going to bring people in, give them a chance to talk about what they know and they don't know, questions that they might have, some real understanding of, you know, when you have a protocol reviewed by the IRB, are they trying to say up or down that the research is worthy? No, what they're trying to say is, okay, you have this question, let's see the valid, you know, backing for it. But on the other hand, are you making sure to honor and protect the humanity of the people that are going to be giving you information? That's a really important piece. It shifts it away from the researcher has this question and we're going to try and help them make sure that they're going to get the answer that they want, to, okay, this question has been posed and this is the strategy that we want to use with the community to get that. And the community is being asked here to say, is this a question that needs answering? Is this a question that you have had? Or do you have a question and what is it? And can we help you think about how you might get to a response, how you might really come to understand? Because I can see a problem and I can articulate the problem. And I can, through trial and error, probably get to a fairly reasonable solution. Is it the best one? Is it one that's, you know, we can replicate? Is it one that's sustainable? I don't know. And I think if you can have more minds coming together to really struggle through that, then you really can have a result that benefits the community, because you honor what someone from a university, from the academy can bring. You can be resentful, you can say they haven't done enough. On the other hand, at that moment, you can say, okay, this is what I know about my community. And this is sort of what I know about research, and you're showing me some more. Now, you know a whole heck of a lot. What can you add to this? And can you help me find a solution for this issue? And so when I was invited to be a part of this, that was so at the core of what was being afforded everyone that it was exciting, because I've been at this a long time and it has not, for the most part, been the way with which I have seen community approached. You know, if it hasn't been patronizing, don't worry about it, we'll deal with it. It has been sort of thoughtless, you know, not cruel, not intentionally mean-spirited, but more of a, you know, it's secondary. Oh, that might be a bothersome way, or that's not an appropriate way of questioning people, or it really needs to be broadened and the platform needs to be a conversation about other things first. And so it's having that awareness and that exchange with other people, with students, with people from the academy, with other people from the community, who've had a very different experience and a willingness to then engage in dialogue. And while I would say that the people that participated, many of them are not my friends, and friendship is a huge piece of what I've gained from working with Dr. Brown, right? But she's also created entree for me with other people that I would not have had access to otherwise, or would not have even considered turning to. Students are so wonderful. They're so interesting. They're willing to work so hard. And one of the things that I also see from myself, again, as an old lefty, is we were so worried about what was coming at us that there was a desire to sort of lock arms and move forward and not create a space behind us for the people who were going to have to keep moving that challenge forward. And what I see in this collaboration is a real understanding of it's here and it's now and it's future and it's continuing. And that's so incredible and so important.
Thank you so much. Caroline, may I ask the next question about this? Because I feel so moved by what you were saying about sustainable relationships. We know at the CCE that stewardship is a big part of our jobs. We have DDCE and to Dr. Brown's point, with and without me, the DDCE stewarded relationships with hundreds of community partners in Austin. And it's always that long time relationship that generates these ideas. But to your point, Ms. Garcia, the idea that when we go into these projects, it's not just a one of, it's, not even just reporting back, Dr. Brown, but it's a matter of, what is the overall impact of a project like this for a community, but also for community leaders, right? As folks come up, are we giving them an opportunity to sort of engage with the university? And I want to say this again, because well, two things I want to say. First of all, we love an old lefty at the Center. And second of all, I loved what you said about honoring the humanity of the people. Both of you touched on that. I also want to add, because I said it incorrectly, patient-centered outcomes research. And so that's the grant, that's the project that we're working on right now. That said, thank you for the specificity around what this relationship is. We know that theory and practice don't always match up. You started this year, Dr. Brown, thinking that this PCOR project was going to be one thing, and then COVID, and then we are all grappling and trying to understand the systemic inequities in our nation. And then the snowstorm, as I said. I'll start with Ms. Garcia actually on this, and I would love both of your perspectives on when the rubber had to meet the road. How did you accommodate for all of these changes? How did you accommodate for the fact that this was going to be on Zoom and it wasn't in the community, and that we couldn't meet over meals in community halls or the like? And if you could talk a little bit about that and maybe the learning that you gained from that.
I think certainly I've been a part of a small not-for-profit for a long time. I've been in the not-for-profit world my entire professional career. So being nimble is critical, because you'll go down faster than anything if you get really sort of stodgy in how things need to evolve. I always refer to it as practicing my bullfighting. So what I saw with this project was, it wasn't that immediately everybody sort of augured into the, oh my gosh, this is not going to work. It was more like okay, well, we have this platform and we have this strategy, and we'll send you, a tail card and get a meal, have it there, sit down. We're all talking to one another. And so that, and then the storm hit, and that was supposed to be one of the evenings where we were supposed to be engaged in a major element of, like the third session, which was by then really much more expansive. And instead it was you know what, we need to step back because people are a little on edge. And I'm not sure that anything that we say at this moment is going to stick. So let's just see how people are doing and talk to them. And I think that it's that willingness to read the room, you know, that you can have a curriculum, you can have a design, your structure is all set in place, but really it is, you got to read the room, you have to know who's present, you have to look for solutions that make it somehow the same but different. And it's that desire to be nimble and accommodate and inclusive that was the order of the day. So that was what was so exciting to watch unfold. And so as you were just saying to me, you know, you weren't able to meet in person, I thought, my brain kind of went, I didn't remember we were supposed to be meeting in person. It just like, oh, right, we were. And this seemed just fine because this worked great. We had guest speakers, people came, we were able to have questions from the floor. We were able to have conversation. There was always the sort of the well-being and welcoming piece. So nothing was lost. It was just done differently. And I think that that was really fabulous to watch and be a party to.
Thank you for that. I want to add to that before passing on to Dr. Brown and really getting sort of some of the ins and outs, because I know that this was a tense time for somebody holding grant funding as well. But I will say one of the things that I thought was over the top effective was the inclusion of vouchers to get dinner for the nights of the meetings, because that's exactly how we would do the work in the community. So with that, Dr. Brown, can you expand on that? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted, yeah. I'm glad that this is the first time that I'm really getting feedback about all the pivots. And Ms. Garcia, you said everything that we had hoped would be true. And we did not rehearse this. This is not, we didn't go off somewhere and you're going to say this and I'm going to say that. Because what I want to share is how personally difficult this was for me. I hold it in the academic world, I hold the principal role of making sure that this thing hits all of its goals. I'm responsible to the funder. I'm responsible to my organization. I'm responsible to my team and my collaborators that certain specific milestones, the funder said, hey, this is an award. We gave you money to do certain things. You got to do them. And we got awarded literally January 1st, all the green lights in 2020 went on, and we had a deliverable in the first 3 months because the way the award was shaped, like, you've got to do this, you've got to get it together. Well, heck, in the first 3 months we were shut down. You know, and I'm like, I was frightened. This was my first award. This was the university's first PCORI. I'm an early career investigator, and I have managed, some very large projects for others, but this was my project. This is different. It's different when you're the PI, right? So it required a great deal of open conversation about, I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure. Well, what am I sure of? Well, what I'm sure of is I know how to teach. That's my bread and butter. And it doesn't matter who you're teaching, little kids, adults, physicians, lawyers, it doesn't matter who you're teaching. There's a particular pedagogy that you look at when you think about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it online. So there was this opportunity to take this other very deep 25 module certification course. And I'm like, okay, this is the stupidest thing I'm going to say yes to because I don't have the bandwidth, but I don't know a lot about online teaching. And I could certainly learn some things from that for my students and for this, because I have to switch everything to online. Like, I don't know these people. We've got 15 to 18 people in the room. And I know maybe a quarter, Like I've eaten lunch or broken bread with a quarter of them. When I say I know you, we have eaten together. The rest of the folks I have never met. And I'm like, how are we going to engage? How are we going to make community? And what are we going to do? So we went back on some very fundamental tenets of what the award says is particularly important. That's why it's a delight to work with Corey. They are very centered on the voices of lived experience and stakeholders who have a stake in an outcome, that they will fund to feed you. Okay. And we said, we will feed you. And if you have, school-aged children at home who can't make a meal, we're going to send you a card for them too, because we had built into it respite. We knew that there were issues about, babysitting and these kinds of things that are important, that we needed to recognize. So we built this in, we found this mechanism where we send you online a redeemable coupon for Uber Eats, and you can shop your food wherever and have it come in and have a meal, so that we can have the spirit of breaking bread, because that's sort of the hallmark of engagement. It is, I've broken bread with you. I used to say to my kids when they were little, if anything ever happened and I couldn't come get them from school, I would send somebody who had eaten at our table. Mommy might not be able to tell you who's coming because something happened, but who comes to say that they're getting they will have eaten at our house. And that's a big deal. And so when I think about that act of breaking bread and communing with others was something that we wanted to keep and recognize. And there was a lot of pivoting that had to be done behind the scenes. Our learners were very gracious with us. The first module, let me tell you just a quick thing about what we created in our learning. We call it now citizen scientists trainings. Our citizen scientists are our co-collaborators, where we created 3 broad modules of learning broadly about what is this academic research thing, and what do y'all people do, and what does it mean to be a partner, and what is collaboration. So we designed this thing, and it was a little academic heavy. We tried really hard to unacademic it in terms of the length of the articles and things, and our partners were like, oh, no, because we evaluate every step of the way. We're like, fill this evaluation out and tell us. And they told us, they were like, oh, no, we are not in graduate school. We love being back and learning, but no. So what we heard was, can you find a video? Can you a video with an accompanying article? And so we stood back, our ego wasn't really bruised. It was like, okay, our students, as a teacher, my students have spoken. It is my job to figure out how to do 2 things. How to meet my learners wherever they are, whatever they want, still hold on to the pedagogy that I know is so important. I have to own that. I have to own that there's a couple of things that I need to get across, but not lose that. Okay, not dilute that, but be able to respond to what was needed. And we pivoted. It wasn't super hard, but we made a strong pivot, and we relied on what had worked in a class that I had done before. It was called Meet the Author. So we have these fabulous collaborators. We work with Community Campus Partnerships for Health, Al Richmond out of North Carolina, who really the founding organization behind engaged work, Community and Campus Partnerships for Health. The name says it all. A treasure trove of absolutely fascinating community engaged scholars from communities, from academics, from everywhere. And they brought us some of the most fabulous folks to talk with. We read their article, we engaged with them over their article. It was like, having tea or coffee or a glass of wine with folks, and we talked and we learned. And that was magic for me to watch the feedback that came from our partners about what they learned, because we had academics and engaged scholars in conversation with each other about their work. And that's the backbone of how we rethought what we did, how we selected key videos that would amplify, easy to watch while you're making dinner or, just doing something light. You can listen to it, get a sense, read a quick article, and then come into this space where we spend a little bit more time. And you don't have a lock on it. You're trained as an academic to be highly knowledgeable, to be able to cite everything within this very narrow space, and really feel in command. And that doesn't work here. That's only a little bit of what the process is. It's about the ability to it's about setting your ego aside. It's about, I'm here to learn with everybody else. There's this thing that I do know, and I'm very proud of what I know, but that's not the center of this, right? That's just a skill that I can bring once we figure out what we're going to cook. Maybe I'm really good at making, what am I good at when I cook? I don't know. I make a really good air fried, chicken thigh. I'm like really good at that, right? So if you want that, I'm your person. But you could probably teach me a whole lot of other things to do in my air fryer. So let me stand back, and learn, right? It is like a big recipe with a lot of ingredients, and everyone is an important ingredient in the right doses at the right time. And you gotta figure out, and I'll close with this last thought. I know that early on, our partners were like, and where are we going? and what are we doing? And we kept saying to them, this is a collaborative, right? We're not here to necessarily say, due north is the direction that we're going in. We've got a couple of obligations to the funder. We committed to do 3 things with the funder. We committed to create a collaborative. We committed to standing up a consultation service, and we committed to, broadly being viable after the award. Those are sort of our 3 broad commitments. How we get there, we've got a couple of paths, a couple of ways that we can take, but it's really, how do we get there together? And we have found so much more together. And our catchphrase is, we are better together. And I believe that firmly. We do think about engagement. It requires leadership, but it's a shared leadership, okay? Somebody has to hold the meeting. Somebody has to get the agenda out, okay? Somebody has to turn the Zoom on. Somebody's got to reserve the room, right? But nobody has a lock on that. And right now we're in the transition to start moving towards finishing and sustainability, of really beginning to share those roles, okay? And find out where people's strengths are, where they wish to grow, to be able to take on some of these things, so that we have a sustainable model and everyone has visited, all aspects of what it means to lead this partnership. There's no, it is not a cult of personalities. It is a commitment to an idea that will thrive regardless of who's in the room, because we are committed to doing engaged research better, and to create a framework for community partners to say to researchers, hey, if you're coming in to my organization, here's the 10-point plan that you have to commit to engage with us. We are in the middle of creating that and articulating what that means to our partners, and what we would ask of researchers to do to demonstrate, as you started at the top of the hour, best practices. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Caroline, I think for me, this has been tremendous. I know that Caroline still has a question for you, but this is just all wonderful knowledge about how to create these robust partnerships and long-lasting partnerships. Caroline?
Yes, thank you so much again. So in wrapping up, just kind of thinking this work can seem overwhelming for junior faculty needing funding, certainly for community partners as well, or even people like me who are just being introduced to the world of research and wanting to do it in the most responsive way possible to the community. There may be some apprehension about collaborating. So I guess before we wrap up, I would love to just hear 3 to 4 words of advice on how to get started. We can start with Ms. Garcia and finish with Dr. Brown. That would be great.
You know, I think my overarching recommendation would be it doesn't have to be big. You know, and I think that that's what happens when we think research. We think large scale, large numbers, you know, our N's got to be big, we got to have power. And I think the piece that's really true is some of it can be much smaller. Some of it can really just be to get a feel for what the questions are. Some of the research can be listening. You know, let's do some deep listening, and that's our research. And let's see what we hear, and pulling those themes and having a deeper understanding. That's incredible. So I think my overarching sense is it doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to go on forever. It can be short, it can be constrained, time limited, you know, but it can yield so much important information that then it just allows you to build on it and build on it. And with that, deepen the trust in the community that you're working with, because they see you doing that. They see you listening, they see you taking it, and they see you trying to build on it. And that's incredible.
Thank you so much.
So do you want me to follow up now?
That would be lovely.
Yes. And as an early career faculty member, I would say there is no scarcity of work. Okay, there is not a scarcity model. I think as academics, we are socialized too often that this is singular work. I only work by myself. Someone's going to steal my ideas. And yes, I know there's truth in some of that. Okay, I don't wish to appear naive, but this is relay work. Okay, this is a relay. A relay is small, 4 by 100. Okay, you got to have a good handoff. You got to have a good anchor. You have to be. It's small. It is highly collaborative, and really, if you don't know the Quincy Jones, you know, analogy, if Quincy was before your time, go look it up. We Are the World, a magnificent piece of work with some of the biggest names in the music industry who came into a room and performed. We can do the same thing. There's no scarcity of work. We don't have all the answers. We need everyone to do this. Start small, I think is the right start, with a couple of people that you trust, who understand, who open different doors, who challenge you in different ways about how you think, and listen to what our community colleagues have to say. There is so much knowledge and so much treasure and talent that's there. We will be better by learning that skill. So still so much to learn, but I have wonderful partners, both in the academy and outside, and just a delight and honor to be here to talk with you and to share a little bit more about our trials and tribulations and where we're going. So stay tuned.
Yes, thank you so much to both of you. We greatly appreciate you being here and spending the time to engage us in conversation about the importance and the logistics of community engaged research. So thank you both again. This is the last of our conversations for the semester. We'll be posting all of our sessions online this summer in case you were unable to attend any of them. As always, remember you are always welcome to connect with us at the Center for Community Engagement for any university community collaborations. So thank you so much again to all of you.
And I would like to just finish us up by thanking Caroline Hoffman for being a graduate student extraordinaire and doing such a wonderful job of developing this session. And thank you, Dr. Brown and Ms. Garcia, for your partnership, for the good work that you're doing. I have so many takeaways from this conversation, and one of them is keep listening and I am grateful for all the knowledge that you've dropped, because it's not just benefiting us as professionals in the Center for Community Engagement, but all of our faculty. And Ms. Garcia, really, we're so grateful to understand one community person's perspective, and hope that we can be good partners to other community members as we develop this work. So thank you both for your time. Thanks, everybody. And the work keeps going. I'll pass the baton, Dr. Brown.
Yep, do that handoff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a delight.
Thank you.